Hamas met in Tehran today with Iran. Further proof, if people didn't believe it in the first place, that Hamas is a direct Iran proxy. There were some interesting quotes from this meeting. The Hamas leader said, quote, "There's a new world order forming and the West is losing its power." Is he wrong? Not really. He's not really wrong. You have organizations like BRICS, which is giving countries a safe haven from the weaponization of the US dollar and our own stupidity, driving our enemies to be allies with each other. Look at Russia and China. Would they be allies if it wasn't for our constant provocation and isolation and animosity? The unipolar war is ending, and the U.S. doesn't know how to respond to it. What I mean by the unipolar war is the U.S. kind of being the main world power and controlling everything. All the trades globally being made in U.S. dollar predominantly. I mean, you look at deals are being made in the Chinese currency, I believe it's the yuan, and in rubles, and oil dealings, which have never happened before globally. Deals are being made globally with the dollar less and less and less. What does that tell you? That the U.S. is not having power to sanction people. I mean, that has been our main way of getting what we want done, is that you trade with our currency, so we're going to sanction you, and now you can't make money because you have to use our currency, and if you don't do what we want to do, too bad. Here's a sanction, and you're not going to be able to make money because you use our currency. But now, places like BRICS is a safe haven for those countries who don't want to be weaponized by our own sanctions and the U.S. dollar. Now we can, or they can go towards, well, they're talking about having their own currency, their own digital currency, which will happen eventually, I believe. And the U.S. will have no power over these countries anymore. We can't sanction them and get what we want done. And China and Russia are now becoming the countries of like, hey, come here. We won't sanction you. We won't weaponize our own currencies against you. Use our currency and you can make money freely. Use the ruble, use the yuan, and you won't have to worry about getting sanctioned or being weaponized with currency that you need to trade with. That's what I mean when the unipolar war is ending. A multipolar war, a multipolar world is here of the U.S. and China and Russia. Those are mainly the three. And when you have two of them are enemies against one, then who's probably going to lose in that scenario? Probably the one. Especially when organizations like BRICS are rising and slowly the one is losing its power over the world. The West is declining in general with obsession over gender, sexuality, killing babies, like I mentioned, the sexualization of children, while countries like Russia and China, along with everyone in BRICS, has strong men, stable homes, stable ideologies. You know, whether you agree with their politics or not, whether you think they're authoritarian, which they often are, but aside from that fact, they don't have an issue of worrying what gender you are, worrying about killing babies. Their birth rates aren't in decline, and if they are, not nearly as much as the West is. They're not obsessed with their sexuality. So, if you look at that scenario, you have 2 against 1 of China and Russia against the U.S., and the U.S. is declining in terms of their obsession with gender and sexuality and sexualization of children and such, like I mentioned, and the other two don't, then that even gives you more reason to think that they're going to win in that scenario because they're not having a declining of civilization like we are, let alone the population of China and Russia versus the U.S. So if God forbid, it ever did come down to a military conflict, they would have much more people to pull from. And even with the United States and NATO, I mean, if the U.S., if NATO as a whole, including the U.S., fought Russia, we would be extremely undermanned against Russia, let alone put in China, which has the largest population in the world. That's not a very even fight. And we would be doomed. And yes, we have the strongest military in the world, equipment-wise, but at the end of the day, we got to have enough men to fight the other country. And we've pushed Russia to be allied with Iran along with China and North Korea, because when Russia comes to us in the early 2000s and wants to be aligned against Iran to keep them from developing nuclear capabilities, and we tell them no, and now they're allied with Iran. So now when you look at the Israel conflict, we now have Russia and China backing Iran against our ally, Israel. So in every facet of global affairs, you've got them going against us. It's essentially turning into BRICS versus NATO. Even though BRICS is an economic alliance and not a military alliance like NATO is, pretty much every country in BRICS is against NATO. So that's kind of where the divide is globally. I mean, BRICS is Brazil, Russia, Indonesia, China, and South Africa, but now they added countries, and I believe Brazil was already in it. I can't remember. They expanded recently and added countries. But my point is, every issue globally is turning into BRICS countries versus NATO countries, and that's, if there ever were a world war, God forbid, to take place again, that would be the fight pretty much. The nations in BRICS like Russia, China, North Korea, Iran versus NATO and the West. And the U.S. isn't realizing how much of a fight that would be. The U.S. is greatly overestimating how much grip and power it currently has over the world. I mean, if they do realize how much power they're losing, they're not making it known. I mean, they're not doing anything to show that. They're still trying to sanction people. I mean, our sanctions against Russia for invading Ukraine have not worked. Their manufacturing of weapons is still, I mean, it's going up. And they're not poor as a nation. Their economy greatly succeeded ours in many areas last year. So our sanctions haven't worked. Partly because our countries can trade in rubles now in many ways that they weren't able to before. And their economy is growing because they're not reliant on the US dollar anymore. They're not reliant on our currency to make deals. They're becoming independent on their own currencies to make money. So that is the perfect illustration that we're losing power, because our dollar doesn't mean what it used to mean anymore. We can't sanction people and get what we want done anymore because, like I said, BRICS is becoming a safe haven for those countries. So all that to say, I went down a little tangent there. All that to say is, what the Hamas leader is what he's saying wrong? No. There's a new world order forming, and the West is losing its power. Russia and China, with Iran and Hamas, who is an Iranian proxy, they appear to be going on the up. I mean, everybody backs Hamas and Iran against this war, or with this war against Israel. So the West is losing its grip and its power on other countries, and we don't realize it. And we're going down with a fight. And we're white gripping it here, white knuckling it. We're not letting it go. And eventually it's just going to all come toppling down. God forbid, if we change our ways and start to be more open to other countries and instead of weaponizing everybody, and we can't accept not being the top dog anymore. We have to accept that a multipolar world is coming. It's here. It's essentially here. And if we want to still exist as a nation, or let alone thrive as a nation, then we have to change what we're doing. We have to change our ideologies, and we have to accept, look, this is where we are as a world. You either adapt or die. And it appears that the United States is not adapting. We're not adapting to a multipolar world. If we can't be number one, then we're going to go down fighting. So, there's many wars that can illustrate this, and the Israeli war against Hamas is the main one, because our main ally, Israel, is losing its support, and we're abandoning them, and everybody globally is backing Iran. along with Russia and China. So we have to realize this. We have to wake up and realize what's going on. People are forming against us. There's other countries don't need the United States like they used to. They don't need us for our dollar because they have to trade with our dollar. So the United States is not needed to have, countries don't need to have good relations with the United States like they used to anymore. They don't need to bow down to us and kiss our feet and do what we say because, God forbid, we get sanctioned and we can't make money as a country anymore. Those days are over. People have countries like Russia and China, which we have isolated ourselves from and completely provoked. And we're so stupid. If you completely provoke people, eventually they're going to find ways to adapt and they don't need you anymore. And that's where we are. So if we want to continue to thrive as a nation, which you could argue we're not really thriving as it is right now, we have to adapt. We have to change our strategy. We have to change what we're doing. And to go about that, we probably need a change of leadership, obviously. But we need new policies in place to where, we had a president like Trump who didn't consistently start wars like Biden has and Democratic presidents always have. He was a president of peace. So if we bring him back, potentially he could maybe start making deals to where people aren't constantly against the U.S., especially economically, and we can start making deals with other nations and quit isolating ourselves and ultimately killing ourselves as a nation by completely isolating ourselves. Then maybe we can start moving forward. Maybe Russia and China won't feel so inclined to cyber attack us and make economic alliances that go against us. Shoot, maybe there won't be a need for BRICS anymore. Maybe we can all start trading with each other's currencies unless it's either the US dollar or nothing. Maybe we should be open to other ideas. So, all that to say, there is a new world order forming, and the West is losing its power. The unipolar world is over. The multipolar world is here. How are we going to adapt to that? We're not doing a very good job right now. It's not too late to change course, but some changes need to happen, and we're not making those changes right now. So let's hope and pray as American citizens that somebody wakes up and realizes what's going on here. Changes need to be made. We need to stop making everybody our enemy, especially the two other global superpowers, and come to the table and negotiate on some things. Let's start with the Ukrainian war. First off, that's been over for years. It's been a stalemate for years. Let's stop sanctioning people because clearly they don't work anymore. Let's start making more allies and enemies globally. Let's start there. And then let's start worrying about stuff on the home front like inflation and terrorists coming into our country. And maybe we can start moving forward as a nation. Hopefully they come to that realization. They're not right now. Something to keep an eye on. The multipolar world is here, like I said. And the United States, this is a make or break moment for us as a nation. Will we adapt to it or will we die ultimately as a country? And going down with the ship per se. We're going to go out, we're going to be on top or we're going to die trying is the route we're going right now. It's not too late to change course, but some changes need to be made. So